Welcome to the Troy Talk Podcast, your home for anything and everything sports. Sit back, enjoy, and here's your host, Troy.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Troy Talk Podcast. Today we have an episode that I hope will provide you with a unique preview on the USC football season that you won't find anywhere else. Today we're going to be delving through some over-under props on some different predictions for USC. We have some player props, some team props, and even some draft props. I hope you enjoy, and I wanted to give a special shout out to all of you guys who flooded the last video with incredible support. As a reminder, if you already haven't, please hit that subscribe button, and please continue to like the videos and leave comments in the comment section. It's been a blast reading what you guys think. The sticker giveaway will be open until supplies run out, so feel free to shoot me an email if you want me to mail you one. Just remember to read the giveaway rules below. You can follow the podcast on YouTube and Spotify. We're inching closer to 200 subs, and I'm hoping that we can get there by the time this episode drops. You can find the podcast on social media at Twitter/X, Blue Sky, and Instagram. All right, let's get this rolling. So over-under props. You probably won't see these in the market because these are completely made up, and you don't really see college football over-under props, especially with players. But I thought it'd be a fun way to kind of get your guys' thoughts on where these predictions will be, whether it be, stats, whether it be players drafted, etc., and how it maybe differs from mine or it agrees with mine. So these are completely made up. Just want to preface that, but that'll be really interesting to kind of go over. So first, we're going to start off with Jacobe Lane's touchdowns. So I put the number at 10.5. Last year he had 12, and just for full disclosure, I'm going to make these lines based off of the regular season. So bowl games, playoffs don't count because obviously that can inflate the number. So he had 12 including the bowl game last year, but actually 9 if you didn't include it. Now I went over in my last podcast why maybe the inconsistency was happening last year with Jacobe Lane. Might have been a scheme issue, might have been a player issue, maybe a little bit of both is what I kind of settled on. So the question is, can he get double-digit touchdowns in the regular season this year? And, this can go either way, I think. You have Mekhi Lemon, who's going to get a lot of touches this year, which could, in theory, take away, touchdown chances from Jacobe Lane. But you saw that Jacobe Lane was so good in the red zone last year when we gave him the ball in the right situation. And, the contested catches are off the charts with him. And I feel like if we maybe come up with some plays, some personnel that can kind of accentuate his abilities, meaning like slant routes using his big body, back shoulder throws. Maiava seemed to be pretty good at those last year. Putting him in the right position, throwing him the ball, peppering him with targets. I think that he can hit this number. Now, obviously, that's basically a touchdown a game. Not going to be easy. Going to be predicated on how much we throw the ball. If we start running the ball, that could change a little bit too. And as I mentioned before, will his touchdowns come in bunches? Will it be more consistent? Because last year you saw a lot in 2 games. I think he had roughly half of his touchdowns in 2 games. So I think it's going to rely on variable things, whether it's the offense, whether it's Lincoln Riley, whether it's him. But either way, I see it going Jacobe Lane over 10.5 touchdowns this year. I think he's going to have a big year. I think he's going to be a first-round target and going to do big things for USC. So next is kind of hand in hand, Jaden Maiava's touchdown passes. So put the line at over 32.5. If you saw his stats from last year in 4 games, he had 11 touchdowns. And if you extrapolate that for 12 games in a season, that's essentially, 33 touchdowns. Because if you had 11 and 4, you add another 22 to that, and it's 33. So I feel like that's a fair number. This one I kind of went back and forth with, right? Because I could see it going, he's 1 more year in the system, comfortable. He's making strides as a quarterback, better decision-making, higher quarterback IQ. The number goes up. But as I mentioned before, maybe we focus a little bit more on the run game. Maybe he has a little bit less of that gunslinger mentality and decides not to throw the ball as much. Who knows? Maybe we have the lead a little bit more and we kind of lean on running the football, right? Because if you're down more against good competition, you're going to throw the ball more and you're going to probably have more touchdown passes as a result. So I think where I'm kind of getting around to it is I think he has the ability, he has the arm talent to do it. And I think the offense is going to be a little bit better than it was last year, whether that be because he's better or Lincoln Riley kind of changes up the scheme a little bit. I just see it kind of firing on all cylinders a little bit more. I think you saw the glimpses of it, but against, Minnesota last year or, even kind of the Wisconsin game first half, Nebraska game, the offense wasn't really humming per se. But you saw even against Notre Dame, that's a fantastic defense that they put a lot of points on last year. So if we can kind of continue that trajectory, even A&M, another fantastic defense that was losing some starters or not playing some starters, but put up a lot of points against them. And when he's making the right decisions, you see us move the ball down the field. And he has 2 of the best receivers in the nation. Maybe we use the tight end a little bit more in the red zone this year. And it has a good running attack to take the pressure off of him. So long story short, I see him going over that. It's going to be close though. I wouldn't, put your whole mortgage on this one, this fake line, but I think he can do it. I predict somewhere around 34, 35 if he has a really good year. All right, next, going to the running game, Waymond Jordan rushing yards. So I put this line at 1,133.5 because that 1133 is what Woody Marks had last year. And that was actually the first time that USC had a 1,000-yard rusher in some time. And I was curious if you guys can maybe take a guess of what that is and leave it in the comments below, see if you get it right. USC has had a lot of good rushers, as I mentioned before, Travis Dye, Keontae Ingram, list goes on and on. But they never quite hit the 1,000-yard rushing limit. Now, what is the reason for this line hitting or not hitting? I think it's going to be whether he's a feature back or not. And I hesitate to, not because he doesn't have the talent. I think he has the talent to go, 1,200, 1,300 yards rushing. It's whether we want to get Eli Sanders in the run game involved, 7 to 8 carries. Brian Jackson, 7 to 8 carries a game. And you can't run the ball 40 times. That's just not what USC is going to do. So I wonder if he has the reps to get this number. You saw Woody Marks, he was kind of pounded into oblivion last year, mostly because Quentin Joyner, while he had some good touches, fumbled the ball a lot, wasn't good in pass pro. So Lincoln Riley definitely put him in the doghouse a little bit and just not over relied on Marks because he was fantastic. But you can tell more so than in the past, we kind of had just basically one running back last year. And I don't think that's going to be the case this year. And I think those limited snaps are what's going to make this difficult. Now, could he get close to 1,000 or even close to this number? For sure. He has all the talent in the world, probably 6 yards per carry. Wouldn't doubt that he gets that. I think they might kind of try to preserve him a little bit, especially being a running back. This is also his first jump to Division I level, and especially Division I Power 4 in the Big Ten. It's different than junior college. So I think you'll see it translate well. It's a big jump, and physically it's a big jump too. And if he gets banged up a little bit, I could see USC being like, okay, we have Eli Sanders, we have Brian Jackson, we even have Harry Dalton and company. We can afford to kind of give him a rest and don't beat him into the ground, because we're going to need him to be healthy throughout this whole year if we want to reach our offensive potential. I think you guys can tell where I'm going with this. I'm going to put it as an under what Woody Marks had last year. I just don't see the reps happening for him, but love him as a player and think he's going to be a star for USC. So next one is going to be fourth quarter comeback. I wanted to kind of put this one in because last year we actually kind of had the opposite, right? We were up in 11 games and we let them come back quite a bit. And I kind of wonder, going against Oregon, going against Notre Dame, even Illinois, Nebraska, we could be down in the fourth quarter going into those games. It wouldn't shock me. I'm obviously going to be an underdog and probably 2 of the 4, and if not, pick them in the other 2. So I'm counting a comeback as we're losing going into the fourth quarter. Obviously, like in the Texas A&M game, I mean, that is a fourth quarter comeback, but it was kind of going back and forth. Actually, that one was probably more, but even UCLA, I think I wouldn't call that really a fourth quarter comeback. It's more just like, hey, we're losing the game. We're down going into the fourth quarter. And, Maiava makes a good touchdown drive going into the last couple minutes. And we win the game, that kind of thing. So I'm going to put this as an under 2.5. I just don't think we're going to be putting ourselves in those positions as much. I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw last year. And I could see us, leading 9 to 10 games going into the last quarter. And, I think we're going to do a little bit better job closing it out. But I just don't think that we're going to have as many opportunities. So that's a good thing, right? So I'm going to put this as an under 2.5. All right, so next one, this one's a fun one. Braylon Shelby and Cam Fountain sacks combined. So put this number at over 10.5. Last year, I believe this group had 5 sacks, so that would almost be doubling this number. And I know that kind of sounds bullish, right? Doubling a number, but I could see this one going either way too. Both of these guys are 2 of my favorite players, and I think you could argue pound for pound have the most talent on this defense. Braylon Shelby's, I think you've seen him getting a little bit better every year, just hasn't taken that next step yet. And Cam Fountain too, I think played more than I expected last year and had more of an impact than I expected last year. So the fact that he got so much reps as a freshman means that I know he's going to get even more increased reps this year. So yeah, will they get double? Interestingly enough, the last combination of edge rushers that had double-digit sacks was actually only a couple of years ago. It was Jalil Muhammad and Solomon Byrd. It's doable. Now, what I kind of has me leaning the under here is not because of the talent. It's that there's just so many mouths to feed on this defensive line. And I'm, like Jakeem Stewart. And we have Devin Tompkins in the middle. We have Anthony Lucas on the edge. And then not to mention, the other defensive line, G.D. Abasiri, list goes on and on. I'm just not sure that there's going to be enough just reps to get it above this. Now, let's project a little bit here. Now, let's say Braylon Shelby has 7 sacks. Could Cam Fountain have 4? For sure. I think so. So I'm not like overwhelmingly choosing an under here because I think this could very realistically go above. But if you told me they had 10 sacks, 5 each, or even like 6 and 4, 7 and 3, I would be happy with that. I think that's an improvement over last season. And we still have to prove that we have the talent and the scheme to rush the quarterback. We haven't put it on the field recently, at least last year. So we'll see how this defensive line gels. And I think they can do it. And I would love to be proven wrong here, but I am going to be taking the under here. All right, so next one, USC players drafted. This is a fun one. Kind of just did a little bit of a thought experiment. We only had 3 players drafted last year, Jalen Smith, Woody Marks, and Jonah Monheim, and I think those were 3rd, 4th, and 7th round respectively, something like that. But a much more veteran-laden group this year. We had a lot of people come back that probably could have been drafted last year. You have your Eric Gentry's, Kamari Ramsey's, and then, Bishop Fitzgerald transferring over. I think you're seeing with NIL, a lot of these players staying an extra year just because, you can make just as much money, if not more, than getting drafted in the late rounds. And there's just more of a guaranteed thing getting paid in college. So I kind of wanted to go through the players with you guys and let me know. I kind of separated them into different categories, like the for sure drafted, the more than likely drafted, the needs a big year kind of drafted, and then I think maybe like a big riser this year that you're going to see him have that big year, and then they could get drafted because of that. So I'll start with DJ Harvey. I think that I just basically went from 0 to 99 on USC's roster, and I think he's going to be similar to Jalen Smith. And if Jalen Smith gets drafted in the 3rd round, I don't see any world where DJ Harvey doesn't, as long as he stays healthy this year. Really good player, instinctual player, one of those players that every NFL team would love to have as their nickelback. So, and I think him playing nickelback because of the Prophet Brown injury might actually end up boosting his draft stock, because that's where I see him playing in the next level. And I think maybe Jalen Smith, if he played nickelback last year, which, I'm super happy and thankful that he didn't, because he like kept us in a lot of games being our number 1 corner when he really wasn't, an outside corner. But if you see DJ Harvey put in a full season of nickelback film, I think that's going to boost his draft stock. And I think you could see him get drafted similar to Jalen Smith last year. Next would be Eric Gentry. I think that's obviously, he has kind of, freakish measurables, 6'6", bulked up a little bit in the offseason. It's just the concussions. That's the biggest thing. If he stays healthy, he's 100% drafted. I think he's a pretty high draft pick. But if he gets another concussion this year, or we just see him kind of get, injury-ridden season, teams may shy away from that and may not draft him at all and kind of just go undrafted and take the risk there. NFL players are very skeptical when it comes to concussion injuries, because there's already been, tons of players that they've had really good seasons and had concussions and then they retire early, right? So you don't want to spend high draft capital on someone that you could foresee retiring early. So that's one thing I could kind of see, but I think he gets drafted regardless. Some team's going to want to take a shot on him and his, athletic ability and just nose for the football. Like, that guy's instincts are off the charts, always making plays when he's on the field. So for sure drafted there. Kamari Ramsey, another for sure drafted, probably could have gone last year in the 2nd round, late 2nd, early 3rd. And I think him coming back this year is probably going to help him boost to a late 1st, early 2nd. He's going to be the captain of the defense, super high IQ, really good instinctual player, great tackler, just going to be an absolutely fantastic NFL pro. So yeah, I mean, he's not really much to talk about him. He's for sure as anybody on this list on the defensive side of the ball. So next, going to the offensive side of the ball, Mekhi Lemon and Jacobe Lane, both I think are 1st round talents and are for sure to go in the NFL draft next year. I don't foresee them staying unless USC drops a crazy bag on one of them, or maybe one of them gets hurt, because if they have just a normal season, then their stats are going to be really high and NFL teams are going to fall in love with them. I think some people already have Mekhi Lemon as their number 1 draft eligible receiver. So I think that shows a lot what NFL and those people at the next level. Jacobe Lane has those things that you can't teach. Those, the hands, the contested catch. Mekhi Lemon just has incredible football instincts and is going to be one of those receivers at the next level that I think can play outside, can play inside, can, help you on special teams. He's just going to be a force to be reckoned with. And just one of those players that I think, kind of like Amon-Ra St. Brown, plays above his weight and height. He just plays so much bigger than he is and looks so much faster than he might test too. So we'll see how he tests. I think that'll probably be the difference in whether he goes 1st round or not. Same thing with Jacobe Lane. If he drops like a 4.5, 4.6, you may not see him go 1st round, but I can kind of foresee maybe like a Michael Pittman. If he goes in the 4.4 ranges, for sure 1st round. If he goes around 4.5, maybe early 2nd. Both of those guys are locks to be drafted, though, if they choose to go out. And then lastly, Braylon Shelby. So this was one I kind of decided I wasn't sure if he's a for sure draft, just because I'm not sure he's going to go. He might kind of do the Eric Gentry thing and just drop a bag on him and try to get him to stay for his senior year. But I think NFL scouts are going to salivate over his frame, 6'5", 240, 250. If he has a really good year rushing the quarterback, if he hits that over on the sack number that we just talked about, he's going to get drafted in for sure 1st 3 rounds. Just one of those guys that has the NFL body now and just needs to kind of prove it on the field, show a little bit more production. But even then, NFL people, they care about projection more than production. And Braylon Shelby is so far has been a perfect example of that. So next we're going to go to the more than likely drafted. And I put Elijah Page here because I think if he were to go into the draft, he's likely drafted. I'm not sure he goes in. I could see him staying for his senior year and collect another paycheck and maybe boost his stock a little bit, kind of like Elijah Vera Tucker did. Because part of me is like, hey, I saw Jonah Monheim last year and I was like, wow, this guy's going to get drafted 3rd and 4th round. And he barely got drafted 7th round, playing his predicted position of center. So I hope that Elijah Page takes that next step, but I think offensive line could be a little bit of a weak spot this year. And as a result, I think he might kind of be like, hey, I might stay. I'm getting like 4th or 5th round grades. I might stay to try to boost my stock one more time, get closer to that 2nd, 3rd, even 1st round, because he has the potential. Really good size, good arms, all that stuff. So I'm just not sure he goes. That's kind of the moral of the story there. Waymond Jordan is another one. Running backs are kind of tough, right? I think you see them try to go a little bit earlier than maybe they're ready for because of just mileage. Running backs take a lot of beating. You saw with Ashton Genty, if he stayed another year, things were going to be tough because that guy had like 250 carries a season, if not more than that. I can't remember what it was. But, first year, like we said, taking that step to a Division I level, if he pops off all conference player, I think he goes into the draft. Unless USC again drops a bag. This NIL really throws a wrench into this prediction. But yeah, I think that our running back room is going to be really good next year, even without him. Brian Jackson coming back, Eli Sanders leaves, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Harry Dalton, Sean Rideau next year, Sean Alston, we're going to have a really good, young but good running back room next year. So Jaden Maiava, that's another interesting one. I think he has one more year of eligibility, if I'm not mistaken, but has arm talent, has those ability to make the NFL throws. So by that regard, I think he will get drafted. He's another person that USC could drop a bag if he has a really good year and keep him. But I think we're going to kind of invest in the Husan Longstreet era after this year. Just depends on all the season that we have. He's going to have to show that he can, develop as a quarterback, the mental aspect, reading progressions, because he's put a lot of film out there that's good, but he's also put a lot of film out there that's bad. And these NFL scouts are going to take note of that. And NFL defenses are infinitely harder than even your Texas A&Ms, your Notre Dame's, your UCLA's, whatever he faced Nebraska last year. So if he can't show that he can take the next steps against the really good defenses, I think NFL scouts are going to be wary of that and wouldn't be shocked if he goes undrafted. But I think more than likely, if he were to go out, he'll probably be like a sixth round draft pick. And then lastly, on my more than likely, it's going to be Bishop Fitzgerald. I think that him being all conference ACC, maybe blacks the measurables a little bit. I don't know how he's going to test, but if he starts all year for USC, has a really good year, I think he probably goes 5th, 6th, 7th round, late round draft pick. Really good player, instinctual safety, has the nose for the football, good tackler, willing tackler, and NFL players teams love that. So I'm excited to see him this year. First time we'll have like an extended look on him. So I think he's going to fit in this defense really well. All right. So for my big riser category, Devin Tompkins was the one I put in this one because he is, raving reviews in camps. Has the measurables, gained the weight, has the explosion. If he has a really good year this year, he's a redshirt junior. He could end up staying one more year and might end up doing so, but he might be like, hey, I had my year, draft stock up. It's not going to get any higher than this. He might end up going. And I could see him being a late round draft pick for sure. Really hoping that he takes that next step because he's really committed himself to the process and kind of developed and been a true Trojan his whole career here. So very excited. And then last category is going to be needs a solid year. Basically, I don't see them getting drafted unless they have a really good year. Anthony Lucas here might be a little harsh, but I think he's been a lot of kind of projection. We've talked about him, high recruit, shown flashes wherever he's been, but just hasn't put it all together for a season. And I think that NFL teams might take a little bit of pause with that. Eli Sanders is going to be all completely on how he tests. I could see him being a really good return man, like a kickoff return man at the next level, play special teams. I see him probably running in the 4.3s, high 4.3s, low 4.4s. So he might get drafted. Just all depends on how he tests. But I don't see him maybe being an NFL running back, just an every down running back. I think it's going to be more of like either third down back or a special teams return man. DeCarlos Nicholson's another one, measurables off the charts. Trevon Reed loves him, but he's old. That's one thing. And just how he tests and if he can show the consistency this year. If he starts and he has a really good year, I think just being a 6'3" cornerback, NFL teams are going to love that. If we start seeing Marcellus Williams or Chasen Johnson or Braylon Conley, all those people maybe take over his role, then I think you're going to see NFL teams be like, okay, this guy's 23, 24 years old, hasn't been able to make an impact at the Power 4 level. Maybe we take a pass on him. And then last two, I put DJ Wingfield in here because I think he probably gets drafted if he plays. I just don't know if he plays. And if you've taken a year off of football, already being old as it is, NFL players or NFL teams again might kind of take a little hesitancy on that. And then John Reed, another older player, good center, going to need a good year though. I think he was good, but maybe not draft eligible. You saw Jonah Monheim have a good year last year, nothing special, but I thought he'd be for sure drafted, and you saw him go in the 7th round. So I think if John Reed has a similar, maybe slightly better year than Jonah Monheim did last year, you see him get drafted. But if he doesn't, and it's an average year, then I don't think he gets drafted. So overall, I put the number at 9.5. I think that because it's so veteran laden, and a lot of these guys are going to kind of take their chance, Jacobe Lanes, your Mekhi Lemons, those are draft eligible juniors that are probably going to leave. I think I'm going to hit the over on this 9.5. All right, so USC all conference players over 7.5. And I put this as a first, second, and third team. I don't count honorable mention. And if you went off of last year, we had 8. So that's why I put the number at over 7.5. We had Eddie Chaplitsky, Woody Marks, Pregnon, Monheim, Smith, Lemon, and Pepper, I think. I don't know if that amounts to 8, actually. That might be 7. So last year we might have had 7. But either way, I think this number is about right. I think Mekhi Lemon, Jacobe Lane pretty much locks to be one of the 6 receivers on that list. Maiava, this really all depends on the year. He has the ability. QB room is pretty weak in the Big Ten, so I think this year's as good a room as any. Waymond Jordan is going to be borderline. There's a lot of good running backs, and a lot of heavy usage of the running back. So we'll see how much he gets used. He's going to have to do all the right stuff to kind of, as far as yards, touchdowns, to kind of get put into that category. Kicker has a legit shot. Caden Chinton at a UNLV was an all-conference in the Mountain West last year. Hopefully we don't have to use the kicker a lot. So Corey Ramsey should likely get it, even though he was honorable mention last year, which I think is sacrilegious. I think he's pretty much a lock. You could even see Bishop Fitzgerald. I wouldn't be shocked, like a third team safety. One of the defensive linemen, Devin Tompkins, could surprise. Braylon Shelby, Cam Fountain, both have chances. I think it's more likely Braylon Shelby. I don't think this Jaw Jarrett, kind of your Keyshawn Silver, just because of the reps. At nose tackle, you're probably just not going to play enough to get a position. Linebackers, Eric Gentry, I think's a lock if he stays healthy. Corners, DJ Harvey, I think has a legit shot if he plays that nickelback position. If he plays outside corner, maybe a little bit less so. And then I'm just trying to think. Offensive line, Elijah Page has a chance, but I'm going to kind of hold off on predicting anybody who makes all-conference team on the offensive line. So yeah, I think moral of the story is over 7.5. I think we can do it. I think it kind of in the same lens that we viewed the draft, how many players get drafted. I think you have a lot of senior talent. You have a lot of talented juniors. You're going to hit this over. So did I put under? I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to say over. All right, USC freshman All-Americans. That's my last one. I just thought this was a fun one because I was kind of doing my research and was like, who's been a freshman All-American? And I saw Keaton Slovis was a freshman All-American, which is pretty crazy. But Elijah Page technically last year was a redshirt freshman, so he got All-American honors last year. But I was just trying to think like who would play enough snaps this year, right? Who would have enough reps to kind of make an impact on here? And I don't know. I struggled to find a little bit. Like Jakeem Stewart, don't really think he gets enough snaps. Marcellus Williams, maybe if he gets the starting cornerback job, you could see him in there. I don't think any of the freshman running backs have enough playing time this year. Same thing with the wide receivers. I think Joey Olsen might be a dark horse if he kind of wins that tight end job, like I said in my Breakout Players podcast. Elijah Vicona or Justin Tanu could do it if there's maybe some injuries and they get a lot of playing time. I know both of them had a really good camp. Same thing with Micah Benuelos, but he's not a freshman technically. Elijah Newby's another thought. If, God forbid, Eric Gentry gets hurt or doesn't play a majority of the year, I think you might see him play a lot of snaps. And as a result, I think he has all the talent in the world, so he could technically be a freshman All-American. But I just don't really see it. I think this is a really veteran group. We're bringing back a lot of people with kind of proven positions. So you're not really going to see a whole lot of newcomers make like drastic impressions. But I think they're going to contribute. Your Jakeem Stewart's going to have a good year this year, just rushing the quarterback, but he's going to be mostly used on third downs, things like that. Elijah Newby mostly probably pass rushing. I think Marcellus Williams, if I were to guess, probably has the best chance of making this team. He just needs to start. That's kind of the big thing. And with that Prophet Brown injury, you might see him start. So I'm going to go end up going under on this. It's not that I don't believe in our freshmen. It's just kind of a, zero-sum game, right? If a lot of people are playing, the other people aren't. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of unique spin on the preview section. Debating on whether I will do one more. I have a special kind of athlete sponsor announcement, which I'm not sure when I'm going to do it, but the video is all made. So be on the lookout for that. Super exciting. Edited the video myself. Came out super good. So just kind of have to get some things in line with that. But I might just end up doing the preview pod. I mean, we're only a couple weeks out from the season, which is crazy to say, and just very excited. As a reminder, plan is 2 episodes a week, preview and recap pod. Tentatively planning Friday morning and Monday morning. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't already, please subscribe, share with your friends. Keep commenting in the comment section. Last video, you guys did incredible and love chopping it up with you. So if you have any questions, if you want a sticker, feel free to reach out to me, troytalk3@gmail.com. Having a blast doing this, and we will see you again next time.